talk a lot about conspiracy theories, and I've seen you talk about, aliens and JFK assassination and all this stuff. It's fun to debunk this stuff, right? It's sort of fun to think about them, whether even 9/11, thinking, at least entertaining the ideas of whatever they may be, that our government did it, or this or that, whatever it is. It's sort of fun to always entertain those ideas, but basically you come down on all this stuff that I think what Carl Sagan would say, that extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. Did I sum up your view on how to deal with this stuff?
Yes, absolutely. The thing with conspiracy theories that are different than other claims that we deal with at Skeptic is they do happen. There are conspiracies. Watergate was a conspiracy. The assassination of Lincoln was a conspiracy. There's all those stories about the stuff that Kissinger was orchestrating in South American dictatorships. We like this dictator versus dictator. We're pulling the strings. We're sending money, arms for hostage. All this stuff was going on. Those are conspiracies by definition. And so we have to acknowledge that does happen. But of course, to the conspiracy theorist, the fact that happened over there means that my pet theory must be true.
Right.
Not necessarily. They're not all conspiracies. So how do we tell the difference? What's the criteria? Well, there's sort of a conspiracy detection kit, like the baloney detection kit, where the more people that have to be involved, the less likely the theory is going to be true, because people are incompetent. They can't keep their mouth shut. We find out about it. I remember I was on G. Gordon Liddy's radio show back in the 90s, and he asked me about conspiracies. I was like, well, you know more about it than I do. I mean, you did it. You're the Watergate guy. I didn't want to say this, but you couldn't even break into a hotel room. I mean, people have this vision of, governments as these super powerful agents that can do anything. Mostly they're just like bureaucrats at the DMV.
Right.
That's what you're dealing with.
Right. So in a way, it's the same thing as religion. The people that are going down the conspiracy path, they want some easy answer for an extremely complex issue that we really often have no answer for.
It's like the economy is not this complex system that no one can really understand or predict. It's 12 guys living in London calling the shots, the Illuminati, and they're pulling the strings and making this happen. And
so it is the same thing as religion, because that feels nice. If you could sort of wrap yourself around that's how the world actually operates. It's sort of the same thing as saying, there's a God, and I'm going to believe that because
it is like a God or a committee of gods or something that's pulling the strings, and it grants way more power than than anybody actually has, which is what we grant to gods, that they have more power than we have. Otherwise, they wouldn't be gods.
Right.
So what's the point of that? And so we work through those. And now politically, since we've talked about left and right, the 9/11 is an interesting take, because that seems to be more on the left, and left and right both have their own hand-picked conspiracies that they prefer. But the anti-vaxxers tend to be a little bit of both. You get anti-government right, and then that think the government is in cahoots with Big Pharma, and then the left, Big Pharma is making money off of vaccine. So you get a little bit of both.
Right, that's interesting. So someone like Bill Maher, I think, is anti-vax for the most part. He's firmly on the left, but...
Yeah, but there it's skepticism of authority. Which authority are you skeptical of, the government or the corporations? And the perception is both have these incredible amounts of power. And studies on this show they really don't have as much power as we think that they do. I mean, CEOs come and go, and corporations rise and fall much more than we think that they do. We think of the Microsofts of the world, even Google, Apple, they will fade. They will. They're on top now, but this will change, just like IBM, General Motors,
Sure.
And but I was in Berkeley last week promoting the Skeptic book. I did a talk for KPFA Pacifica Radio, which is very far left progressive. And so I was at this church, which was kind of wild, because a big cross behind me, but there were protesters there. I thought, protesters, oh my God, what is this about? And they're handing out literature, the engineers and architects for 9/11 truth, and Shermer versus reality, Building 7 could not have collapsed, and I'm like, whoa.
Oh, I saw you tweet something about this,
Yeah, so this is that the government is, pulling the strings and doing these things because of oil and the war. And so it's after the fact reasoning. It's the hindsight bias. So we went to war. It was a big, bad idea, but we did it for Therefore, we must have triggered the war in the first place. Don't conservative and Republican administrations do those sorts of things. I said, yes, so do Democratic. Roosevelt could not get America into the war to help Churchill, who he wanted to help, because of the American firsters were very powerful in the late 30s, and they could all see the Nazis rising, and Roosevelt and Churchill wanted to do something about it. But Charles Lindbergh and the American firsters were very powerful. Pearl Harbor, end of story, we're going to war. So isn't that an example of using an event that you didn't orchestrate to do something politically you want to do? Everybody
but it sounds like a nice conspiracy theory that they knew it was going to happen and they allowed it to happen.
So there was two conspiracies about that, and same 9/11. Either they did it, or they knew it would happen and allowed it to happen in order to get this political motive. So neither of them are true.
Right.
And the reason we know this is because the evidence that's used in favor of the conspiracy is all along is hindsight bias. Is that look at this memo here. The famous August 9th memo from Condoleezza Rice, Osama bin Laden will attack on U.S. soil. Wow, how come Bush didn't do something about that? Because there is 10,000 pieces of info like that every week, and then you're sorting through it, and no one's talking to each other. It's just chaos.
So are you ever able to debunk a conspiracy theory to a point where the theorists themselves will concede it? Because that's sort of the fun in it. There's no end, right? So even if you lay down something that is just ironclad, still they're going to find some way to get around that,
they do.
Right? I mean, how often do you win in that, win? So
I don't know. To the people that I'm debating or talking to, probably never.
Probably never.
But we're after is, again, the undecided voters. The people that are like, yeah, what's the story with that? I heard something about that memo. Oh, I see. And then they, okay, forget it. Never mind.
Right.
Nothing to that. And you try to influence them by just some, basic questions. Like I rifled through all the other things that Islamic terrorists have done. London and Madrid and Boston and the African countries and so on and so on. And are they also part of this vast right-wing conspiracy that the Bush? No, of course not. But that particular one.
Yeah.
Which is a little bit like, okay, we know those crop circles were faked. But the ones over here we don't have videos of, those are the real ones.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, and there's also seems to be a need to explain things that can't easily be explained. So even going back to the Cologne thing, I saw that day a fairly well-known feminist saying this was probably the work of anti-immigration people that that allowed this to happen, because she didn't want to really deal with the world as it was and deal with the difficult questions related to immigration and race and religion and all of that stuff. So instead, you kind of use it for your own purposes. And then you just open up another conspiracy theory, and then that gets retweeted enough, and then you've opened up a whole other
in that case, it's okay to just call bullshit.
That's what I did. I was like, this is a bridge too far.